Welcome in, Falcons fans. Your boy Bryce Lewis back at it again for more Atlanta Falcons content. And as we continue to roll through this offseason, right now we're entering that dead period, as some people say, right before training camp, in about a month from now for the Falcons. So today I want to bring on Jarvis Davis. He is a podcast host of the Atlanta Football Party for Locked On Sports. Sir, appreciate you coming on today, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Things are going well. It's hot outside, and
Yep.
the weather is nice, and hey, scenery is always good when it's hot, and yeah. So yeah, man, I'm doing good, man. Can't complain on my side, right?
Hey, man, that's good, man. Yeah, you talking about hot, man. It's supposed to be hitting like 100-degree heat index this week where I'm at. So I'm just like, geez, we ain't really in that part.
Yes,
but,
indeed.
but
AC is definitely burning right now. Let's go.
Yes, sir. Right now, but hey, man, listen. Things are going to start heating up in about a month
Sure.
for the Atlanta Falcons. As they get into camp, I think there's a lot of expectations around the team. Some people may call this the make or break year. There's a lot of different opinions out there, man. So I just want to start with this first for you. How do you feel as of right now about the Atlanta Falcons team? Obviously through the camps. Obviously we didn't, no pads or anything like that, but just through what they've done this offseason. How do we feel right now? How are you feeling? Good? Are you feeling optimistic? Are you feeling
You know what, man? To be honest with you, and for me, we actually just talked about this on the Atlanta Football Party on Locked On Sports Atlanta. And one of the things that I said was the fact that I'm actually excited. Like, there's a lot of anticipation for me for this season because of the emphasis that they've put on in bringing edge rushers in. Because, man, look, man, I've been talking about the Falcons getting some dudes in here that can rush the passer on a consistent basis for the past decade. The last consistent pass rusher that the Falcons have had is John Abraham. John has been retired for a very long time. So long that he's still trying to get in the Hall of Fame, which he should be in, by the way. Anybody that gets over 100 sacks in any era in the NFL, all right, man, there's no reason why they shouldn't be in there because he was definitely a force to be reckoned with coming off the ball and putting quarterbacks on the ground. So yeah, for me, I am super excited right now. And I haven't felt this way in a long time because of the young guys like a James Pierce Jr., who was a guy that I was a little skeptical about, and then you got not even from the character standpoint, just from just looking at him, checking out some of his tape and looking at how, the athleticism sometimes didn't necessarily match the production, so to speak, or the tools that you need in order to be successful on a consistent basis in rushing the passer. So, but I am, once I got a chance to, get my eyes on him, look at him up close, like, oh, this dude got the bill. He's one of those cats you let walk off the bus first. You know what I'm saying? Like you walk off the bus, cat, like, oh shoot, all right, okay, we in one for one today. Like that's what I wanted people to say when they face the Falcons. So yeah, and then you got Jalen Walker, who I feel like he was one of my favorite cats coming out of Georgia, right? Like just from a character standpoint. Look, I'm sounding like Terry Fontenot.
I'm dead. You doing
the character, the leader, the ethos, all that crap. You know what I'm saying? Every little Terryism I could throw out there. I wholeheartedly believe that because the guy, when you turn on that tape, man, the dude was a guy. He was a guy that just popped consistently. And the way he took over those games against Texas last year, my goodness, man. I can't even think of his name now. He was the tackle that drafted out of Texas that's down with the New Orleans Saints. It's gonna be funny. I used to joke on our pod all the time, like, yeah, man, Jalen Walker got a son. Kelvin Banks. I think it's Kelvin Banks. Yeah, Kelvin Banks, the tackle out of Texas. I was like, yeah, he had a son that was drafted. So, you know what I mean? Like, he's going to get to go against him, quite a bit. So, yeah, it's going to be fun to watch, man. But, with those guys coming in, Braylon Trice coming back from injury, Arnie Ebiketie potentially having a breakout season because we've seen the progression is not as fast as we wanted. And I'm including myself in that situation. I'm like, hey, man, second round draft pick. Wait, what are you waiting on? So I think this is going to be the year you're going into a contract year. We see that jump with guys who have progressed throughout their careers. Yeah, and they say, hey man, it's time to get paid. So I'm gonna do what I need to do in order to get that done. So yeah, it's a lot of guys in that edge rush room. It's a lot of competition. It's a lot of talent in there, right? Unproven talent, for sure. To keep the optimism down. So, but yeah, overall, man, for me going into this year, I can't wait to get these guys in this doggone field and get them out on the grass and with pads this time in July. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I think too. Touching on the defensive line like you did, I think that's where, like I said, a lot of excitement, a lot of optimism comes from.
Sure.
Fixing the pass rush issue that's been an issue for over a decade now, and
Right.
it's one of those things that I think when you look at the team, relying so much on the youth that they have in the front is going to be interesting. Nate Ollie coming in, guys are excited about him, saying they're going to more of an attacking front, which probably suits the talent better. I know they're moving some guys around. I think Zach Andrews Harrison's going to be more of a big edge for them with Brandon Dorless, and things of that nature. And then, like I said, just incorporating the pass rushers. I mean, you can't even forget about guys like Leonard Floyd, Morgan Fox, those guys. It seems like there is an infusion of, you got the veterans, you got the youth, you got the talent. And now I think the Falcons also, and I knew this about them last year, it feels like they count a lot on the ability to coach and develop. Yeah. They really think. Because I think, I don't know, I think it was Mike Tomlin who said it on a podcast. He was just like, if you pass on a player because of like, oh, they're raw or something like that, that probably means you can't coach.
Ooh, yes. He was on the pivot. I remember that. Yeah.
He's
one of those cats. Yeah.
He was just like, you can't coach. And so I think Raheem's one of those guys like, we think we can coach and we can get these guys where we are. So with that, just the defense overall for you, how do you feel about what they've done on that side of the ball? Obviously, it feels like they've added competition at the safety position next to Jesse Bates. It looks like Mike Hughes will be CB2 going into the year. Sure. Nickel obviously has 3 guys vying for that position. Some people wondering if Billy Bowman already has the inside track on that. We'll see. And then obviously adding Divine to the linebacking core. Kane Ellis coming back for another year. Troy trying to, stay healthy. That's the biggest thing. Just stay healthy this year.
Yeah.
And then we can't forget about Captain America. So how do you feel about this defense overall with Ober running this defense now, being the new voice and trying to get this team where they need to go on that side of the ball?
Like, my biggest question for this defense coming into this season is rotation, right? Because I feel like the defensive line, with all those guys that I mentioned, how are those snaps are going to play out? Who's going to be the starter? Is Leonard Floyd going to be a starter? For me personally, I would rather him just be a guy coming in on 3rd and long. You know what that means? That means James Pierce Jr. is out there, is balling. That means Jalen Walker is doggone balling, and you can keep him in there on 1st and 2nd down, and not have him be a specialized player. And if you could get Leonard Floyd in a specialized rusher role, oh my goodness, that means your defense is humming. So I think that rotation is the first question to come to mind, and I think the second level, which is, I feel like it should go in this order. Like, you start up front and then you go into the second level. I feel like Caden Ellis is probably bound to have a breakout year because in Jimmy Lake's defense last year, he was not used correctly. I think everybody knows that. Just looking at that, this man, if Caden Ellis is dropping into coverage on all pass downs or a majority of the pass downs, you're a loser. You're a loser. You're a loser as a play caller. Absolute loser, because that man should be rushing the passer on 3rd and long. So now you got a guy in Divine Diablo who hasn't had that many injuries, if at all, and they weren't major. So he's been there. He's been a guy who can be on the field, and then you put the measurables and the production that he had with the Raiders. You say, okay, all right, Divine Diablo is going to allow Caden Ellis to be used like he's supposed to be used, which is downhill running back. Downhill linebacker coming off, making tackles in the backfield with the running back, and also in pass situations. Shoot, I can have that. That's my second level rusher right there. Jeff Obrey, hey, that's my tool. Okay, we got Divine Diablo and Caden Ellis lined up in those A gaps pre-snap, and the quarterback got to figure out who's coming. And most of the times, we don't care if because 55 is a guy that can get home. He can win, in that particular situation. So I think that, that's the thing for me. I start off with the rotational. That's my biggest question. Like, okay, who's going to shine? Who's going to rise to the top when it comes to getting those snaps, getting those money down snaps, like on third and long? Who's going to be that front four? I'm so intrigued about what that's going to look like. Then you got this Divine Diablo bringing that stability, like you mentioned with Troy Anderson. Like, I can't count on Troy Anderson. That's why they went out and signed her. The Falcons can't either. They said, hey, man, we need somebody who can come in here and be one of our coverage linebackers, be one of our run and hit guys, be that versatile guy that we need in order to unleash Caden Ellis, on third and long. And then as far as the secondary goes, I feel like it's funny that you mentioned Billy Bowman having the inside track as a rookie to a nickel spot. I think that the Falcons understand that Xavier Watts is probably going to take some time to develop, right? That's why they brought in Jordan Fuller, because Jordan Fuller is a guy who has started for you. Jordan Fuller is a guy who's familiar with the system because he played with the Rams, when Raheem Morris was defensive coordinator for those guys. So I think that secondary is pretty much set, man. It's going to be a lot of competition at a nickel spot. I wouldn't necessarily count Clark Phillips out because he's a competitive cat too. Like, remember the weirdness and the awkwardness when he was asking about his matchups with Drake London, and look how Drake London responded. I would be surprised if those guys really didn't like each other when they were in college. And I think Clark Phillips is a guy that doesn't really care, because those guy corners like that, of that size, you got to have super confidence. You got to have dumb confidence. You got to be like, oh, that man has a lot of confidence in himself. I don't know why. Yeah, that's dumb confidence. Yeah, Clark Phillips has that. So I wouldn't necessarily count him out in that nickel spot either. And then D. Offer obviously had a down year last year. So, yeah, it's one of those situations where you got multiple guys going for a spot. And I love that, man. I'm real big on that. Like in college, man, like there are certain things that go with position battles, right? There's a certain level of, hey, man, I know you're my teammate, but, hey, man, I'm trying to get this starting spot. Right. And then in the NFL, that's a bigger, jump too, because money is involved. I know money is involved now in college, but I went to college 2 years ago. You know what I'm saying? So you think about what's on the line or what's at stake, when you go from being a guy to come in on certain packages versus a guy to say, hey, when we go out and nickel, you're the guy, and then we get into the exotic stuff and different type of packages and 3 safety packages and all that stuff from a week to week basis. But when we're in nickel base, you're out there. So I think he's interesting. And then I think that, with the Jordan Fuller signing and Xavier Watts, I feel like it's going to take some time for him to for them to feel comfortable putting him out there next to a guy like Jesse Bates. I know having Jesse Bates out there, you can pretty much put anybody out there. I'm kind of scared to say that because it's the league, it's a different level of talent, man. Because teams, once they find the weakness, they're going to go at you. And we saw that last year. Like, hey, Justin Jefferson not really getting that many catches against AJ Terrell. Oh, let's line him up in the slot. You see how that worked out last year. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, it worked out well for D. So that's why they only gave him a 1-year contract, and they drafted a safety and converted him to nickel. You know what I'm saying? Billy Bowman. So I think that overall, they are counting on a lot of young pups, but they're counting on a lot of talented young pups. First round talent guys. Guys in the mid round who got drafted in the mid to late rounds, and people thought they should have gone second and third round. And then it wasn't just the Falcons thinking that too, because experience sometimes like, hey man, why y'all drafted the Ruka? You know what I'm saying? Like that high, and y'all traded up for him too in the second. You know who was available? You know what I'm saying? Before that, So I think that overall, I understand the concern with counting on so many young guys on defense, but this time around it's a little different because these guys that they're counting on, they have a lot of talent.
Yeah, for sure. And listen, even go back to what you mentioned about the root thing. You got to understand, came from the Dabo Sweeney system.
Sure.
God touching the program. Always.
I get this guy, right? Hey, out of this, sir. We talk about your coaching abilities. Don't bring God into this. I know
Listen, that wasn't NIL he came from. That wasn't
right.
NIL.
Yes.
God's name, image, and likeness. Okay,
Yes.
that's why we traded up for him.
Yes.
let me stop. But also going back to the secondary,
Yeah.
one person who's an interesting name, and it's not because there's an expectation for him to maybe play a lot, but it'll be interesting to see if he makes the team. I want to get your thoughts on Cobee Bryant, and he was a guy who some people, I felt like a lot of people said he was going to be an early day 3 pick.
Sure.
I mean, he was one of the better, if not one of the top big 12 corners in the country, for that conference. And so, what do you think about him? Because some people think like there's some talent here. Obviously, the frame probably is your issue because he's really skinny.
Yeah.
But what do you think about him and just his likelihood? Because some people say if he makes the practice squad, some team's going to poach him. So what do you think about that?
I think that it was funny because, obviously the name, just the name alone, Cobee Bryant. Like, the name recognition is already there, regardless if you watch Kansas play on Saturdays. Like, so I think that's part of it. And then the personality. The personality is big. You got a big following on Instagram. I think like over 200,000 followers, and then he's not the most reserved guy either. Well, he just bought $100,000 chain, so it's stuff that comes with that too. So when you have the personality, the off the field stuff, and you know how important social media is to college football players nowadays, you can make some money doing it, that type of stuff. So, and you talk about what he was able to accomplish. Dude put up some numbers, dog, with 13 career interceptions. That's nothing to sneeze at. So that means he has a knack for the ball. And one of the best corner to ever play the game, and the guy that I feel should be in a conversation for the best player to ever play the game, is that's Prime. Because Prime changed how people dressed as cornerbacks. From the scarf to the brashness to the way you talk, the way you carry yourself, to not taking no crap from nobody, and being able to back it up, and then if you try them on with these hands, you're gonna throw hands too. So I think it's just all of those things kind of just boil up into like, all right, this is why everyone knows about an undrafted free agent. Now, as far as the player, he's 6 feet, 180 down. I remember I talked to one of my guys who's a scout, that was at the East-West Shrine game. Dude went out there and dominate, and I trust this guy's word. He has a good eye for talent. So, and what makes you wonder though, why he failed so much. Like,
what was the reason?
What was the big thing? I want to say, if I remember correctly, that he weighed 160-ish or 170 while he was out there the East-West Shrine game. And of course, he put on some weight as he was going through the combine process. So I think that's a big thing, because he's 6 feet tall, because you got the height. Like, all you got to do is add 10 pounds of muscle, because when you think about coming into college, so when I came out of college, I was 295, right? And when I got to college, everybody started having these conversations about, working out. Like, the training regimen is different. It's much more extreme than it was in high school, obviously. So it's like, okay, how much weight you're going to put on when you get to college? And because it's not like you're not going to put on weight when you get to college because of the training regimen. It's going to be much more extreme than anything you were doing in high school. So that's why probably the questions of overall, like, how are you able to get through college and be at this particular weight? Because we understand, like, 180 is probably the lowest you probably want to get when you playing DB, and trying to go into the NFL. So I would say probably the work ethic probably was questioned, and this me just spitballing, just looking at the strictly numbers. And I think that was probably one thing that was probably questioned. But I believe that he has a pathway to make this roster, just because of the talent that he has, a knack for the ball, the height, right? Because those, look at AJ Terrell, 6 feet, 6'1", 195. Like that's that prototype. Like Jeff Obrey wants a certain type, and that's pretty much with guys like that. You want to play some man. You want to lock up. So I think that when you have a guy like that at that undrafted spot, that says something. And Raheem Morris even talked about this during OTAs. He was like, yeah, that was one of the selling points to him as an undrafted free agent, because for those who don't know, undrafted free agents, they get to pick and choose their team.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And then the contracts are shorter too. So you get to get your second contract much quicker than a guy who was drafted. So it's just so many different things. So there's so many things you have to think about as an undrafted free agent. So he was like, man, I gave him the vision because they got a chance to meet with him pre-draft. Right. So I think all those things kind of balled up into, of course, you probably have some questions as to why he failed. But when you look at the tape and you look at the size, the measurables, you meet the person, you're like, okay, all right, I don't know what y'all were thinking about, but hey, yeah, we're going to prioritize this guy. And that's why the Falcons immediately went out and signed him once the draft was over.
Yeah. It's funny because I feel like so many people were hyped about the undrafted free agent class, but we got some names. We got some names in the class.
Yeah, people that's essentially why people were so hyped about it, because you actually know the names.
Yeah, and so you're like, oh yeah, he hooped at Kansas. Like what? How did he not go draft? Like I remember kind of going back through like some Twitter history and stuff, and people are like, yeah, like he's rising off draft boards after like you said, after there was the Senior Bowl, right, or the East West.
East West, yep.
East West. So it was one of those things where people were like, all right, we have a lot of expectations here. We think he can do something. So I'm curious to see how that goes. But I will ask this. Going over to the offensive side of the ball. Defense, there's a lot of optimism, but we also know there's a lot of untapped talent. Offense, it feels like, all right, the talent is there. We know there's talent.
Yeah.
It's just, now what does that turn into? We've heard about their expectations to want to be a top 10, top offense in the league.
Yep.
Right? And one of the main reasons for that and how they can get that is going to be Michael Penix.
Yep.
A lot of people are excited about him. I know so many people have done film evaluations on him, trying to get a feel. I feel like if you didn't like him coming out of Washington, you still probably don't like him as much. But if you love them coming out of Washington, you're probably like, I feel really good. Well, how do you feel about Michael Penix Jr. going into his first full year as a starter, getting the reps with the first team all offseason? He's the guy. And what do you want to see from him as the starter?
First of all, when he first came out, I remember him. He was at the Senior Bowl, and that was my first time actually getting eyes on him. UW, Washington, on the East Coast in Atlanta. I don't get a chance to see those guys much. Most of the time, I'm asleep when they're playing. But I got a chance to watch them in the playoffs. But I feel like I value seeing players in person versus watching them on TV. It's different. It's just different. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's just different. So for me, I got a chance to watch him when he was down at Senior Bowl, and he was hands down the best quarterback. Hands down. From accuracy, from deep ball, just the ease that he throws with, the way the ball just pops out of his hand, and then look at the dude hands, man. Hands probably my size, pause. You know what I'm saying? So when you think about those different tangible things, right? And then let's go to the intangible. Dude, nothing shakes him. Nothing. Look, just think about that drive, after he threw that interception against the Commanders. Come right down the field, boop, 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 kick a field goal. Whoop, like nothing happened. You didn't even know he got turned the ball over. Okay. And then the drive where threw the touchdown to Kyle Pitts. You didn't see any type of no nervousness, no anxieties, just like fumbling through the play call, none of that stuff. Jake Matthews even talked about it. He said he knew once that dude came in the huddle and he was just calm, cool, collected. They were like, oh, we might got us one. So yeah, the optimism for me is there. Like I feel like he's gonna be a player. I wasn't all sold on him, like, oh man, I love Michael Penix. But like I said, once the Senior Bowl came, and then you kind of see him getting an opportunity last year, which is some pressure. You know, hey man, our quarterback, we just gave $100 million in guaranteed bread. He stinks right now. So well, get us in the playoffs, please. You know, in these last 3 games. So when you think about all the way he played, the way he performed, dude, I know people look at the completion percentage. Yeah, 58%. Yeah, that's not great at all in this league. But like you said, once you watch the games, you see some of the guys weren't used to him. They weren't necessarily on the same page. You weren't able to, you know, take snaps with the ones at all. You know, because that's just how it goes. You're the backup quarterback. There's a reason for you to take snaps with the ones. So I think that in-game, on-the-fly experience is going to do well for him now that he is the guy. You're going to get all the preseason work with those guys. You're going to be throwing with those guys and going to where they live, or they're going to be coming to where you live and getting that work in. So, yeah, I think this offense is predicated on being a top 10, top offense is essentially falls on his arm. Him getting that deep ball and getting the ball down the field to Darnell Mooney and Ray McLeod, and obviously Drake London's more so of a mid-range guy, but you can get some work down deep once he gets man-to-man coverage, because I think the word is out a little bit on Drake, you know, as far as from a, you know, hey, this dude is a ball player type thing. We'll have to pay attention to 5 now. So I think that 9 to 5 connection is going to be real big. But yeah, him being able to complete the ball down the field and having a strong behind running game, you know, to lean on and you work that play action in, that's going to be how those guys get to where they want to be.
Yeah, and I'm also curious too with that. You know, we've heard about Zach Robinson kind of saying he had to scale back some things due to Kirk, maybe arm limitations, things of that nature. And then them going into the second year now saying, hey, we're going to expand this offense and what that looks like. You know, we know the deep passing game is a big focus. That maybe a person they're looking at to help in that is Darnell Mooney. He runs 4.3. He is a guy who, hey, some people still aren't sold on Darnell Mooney. And I'm trying to figure out, I don't know why. I don't see how.
They watching.
Listen, man, I guess they looking at the last couple of years Chicago and still just like, I don't know. But I'm like, he also had 1,100 yard season in Chicago as well. Listen, he didn't have the greatest quarterback play, and I feel like he.
And name the quarterback that he had when he got those yards.
It was not. Listen, man was playing with legends out there. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you know, and I think, you know, so I'm curious to see how that connection, because he's someone who's been mentioned a lot in terms of maybe a receiver who really takes another step this season for the team. Probably would have been 1,000-yard receiver if he didn't get hurt at the end of last year as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be interesting. Now, I wanted to ask you about Kyle Pitts.
Okay.
Obviously, he's a big topic of conversation. Last year, it feels like a big old either we're going to either be like sign him back or we're going to hit Kyle Pitts in the year. It's either or usually. But Penix has been confident. Penix says he's been great. Penix says it's almost like, I don't want to say Penix says he thinks he can fix him, but Penix really thinks that him and Pitts could have a strong connection this year, especially just because, again, this is probably the most talented quarterback he's had in terms of just like talent. I'm not saying like best one he's had playing, but talent.
Yeah,
because Matt was at the end of his career.
Yeah,
Marcus Mariota. Yeah, Desmond Ridder. Exactly.
Yeah. So, fair. That's a fair statement.
So, and biggest arm quarterback, I can say that. Sure. So that could help him when it comes to the deep passing game. What if there's anything that you want to see from Pitts this year? Just what is the one thing you're just like, I just want to see this, regardless of how this season goes. I just want to see this out of Kyle Pitts this year.
Consistency. That's all I want to see, because my expectations for him going into this last year of his contract, I don't really have any, to be honest with you. I think he can be whatever you get from Kyle in this offense is gravy on top because of the names we just mentioned: Drake, Darnell, and Bijan Robinson. Get him the rock. You know what I'm saying? Him being a pass catcher and expanding that a little bit. Expanding that passing game and kind of giving and leaning on, and Tyler Algier. Like those are like legit. That's 5 weapons I just named. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, so when you talk about the pecking order and guys who should get targets, the list is long before. I mean, it's pretty extensive before I even get to Kyle because I haven't seen it from him.
Mhm.
Right, I haven't seen the consistency. So the OC calls plays that he knows. He calls plays for guys that he knows are going to get the rock. Like he know Drake is going to give him exactly. He going to run that route to the T.
Mhm.
Michael Penix, Kirk Cousins, who's a guy who expects you to be in a certain spot, and if you're not in that spot, I'm gone. I'm going to my next read. And when you can't count on the guy to be where he's supposed to be, that's why you get, man, why Kyle Pitts not getting the ball? I was like, because it's just not there. The consistency isn't there. So, for me, in this year for Kyle is critical for him to be in that space where he can at least get a serviceable
Mhm.
tight end contract if he's going to stay with this team. But I don't think that he's going to play to the point where the Falcons be like, oh man, we got to make him one of the top 5 tight ends in the league. He's not going to make that big of a jump. I just don't believe that.
Mhm.
Like if he does that, I'll come on here and say, man, Bryce, I was wrong, bro. I was all wrong. And you can call me and call me out on it. Like, hey, I'll come on. It don't matter the time. We could do it. But for me, I think he's playing for a Caleb McGarry type contract. You know what I'm saying? I feel like he can make that type of jump if he remains consistent. But anything outside of that, and saying, oh, to justify him being the highest
Mhm.
drafted tight end in NFL history, nah, I don't think he's gonna have that type of year.
Yeah, man. I feel like people said all the time. We just got to sometimes let go of what he was picked at and just look at what
Sure.
he is. I think sometimes we just hang on to that. And,
Yeah.
that's why some people I understand suggest a fresh start because they're like, well, if he gets traded now, that pick expectation is gone because he's not with the team who originally drafted him. Now it's just like he's just trying to show he's a good tight end in the league. And I think,
Yeah.
like you said, we've seen signs. I remember the Tampa Bay game from last year, best game he had all year.
Mhm.
On National Tight End Day, hooped, and then and then listen, he's such a
And then to go from that, Bryce, I mean, cut you off, to go from that towards the end of the year, it was on the sidelines. Charlie Warner was getting
Yep,
a good portion
getting some
good
more
portion
rep.
of those tight end T1 snaps. You know what I'm saying? Because guess what? He was probably one of the best blockers behind Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McGarry in the run game. Like that mofo was out there. He was out there working. So when you think about it from that aspect, it's like, hey, okay, what does this offense need? They need
Mhm.
a tight end that can catch whatever ball you throw to him. And they need a guy that can get in front of somebody and hold on to break 7. If 7 needs to get a 50, 60 yarder type
Mhm.
situation, he needs multiple breaks this year to be able to get to that top 10 offense they want to be. And if you're not bringing all of that to the table, which Kyle doesn't, he doesn't bring it. He's gotten a little better with
Mhm.
effort in the blocking world, but like not for what they need this offense to get it to where they want to be, because they can't be sitting up here trying to draw plays for him and him
Yeah,
running at the X. That just they don't need that. They don't need that. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that that kind of stood out to me too last year. Like, hey man, this man on the sidelines, mostly 89 was out there rough housing and getting it in, getting those little check downs. So yeah, if you can't do that, hey man, it sucks
yeah.
because y'all drafting them so high, but it's kind of is what it is at this point.
Well, it's funny because I was also saying, they had those trade rumors about him. I was just like, I know within the offense, it's just especially coming from the McVay-ish tree, tight ends. They're not obviously first or second options in these
Sure.
situations,
Yeah.
and yet people were like, well, if we trade Pitts, I mean, yeah, Warner, I guess, would be tight end 1, but then it's like Warner's not really he's not known as a pass catcher.
Right.
Especially in your red zone, that's where you hope a tight end becomes a threat.
Mm-hmm.
So they said your best pass catcher is probably what? Joshua Simon, the undrafted free agent tight end from South Carolina, which some people think has potential.
Yeah.
He has potential, but like
pathway for him to make this roster too. Now that's a path. That's a pathway for him to make this roster too.
Yeah. I feel like if they're keeping 3 tight ends, I'm like, I don't know if there's a stronger third tight end on the roster right now. So
man, I'm just saying, it's a pathway. It's a pathway.
But it'll be interesting to just see how he fits in with everything, because again, you can use him as an inline, you can use him outside as a slot or outside, however. It should be interesting to see how he's integrated into this newer, more expanded offense this year with the team. And so, though, I do want to ask about this too, because the slot receiver position we know is Ray Ray. Some people have wondered, is there an opening for someone else to come in there and take that spot? Biggest name I pretty much have seen people talk about is Cordell Hodge, just because, you see some camp highlights, get a little hype over that. I mean, he did hit the game-winning touchdown against Tampa. Because I always tell people, like, hey, Cordell, he's actually fast. Like, he can run.
Yeah,
like,
he's
bigger. And he's a bigger guy. Do you see any threat there with Ray Ray? Or do you think Ray Ray's wide receiver 3 all the way through and through?
Ooh, that's a hard one. All the way through and through, like that kind of, you saw as my face started to turn a little bit. I don't think Ray Ray's got it locked up like that. But I do know what Cordell Hodge has locked up: special teams. So he's going to make this roster. And like you said, anything he gives you from the actual wide receiver spot is gravy on top. So with that being the case, knowing that he's in there on this roster, because if you're just looking at him from just a wide receiver standpoint, you're probably not going to make the roster. So I feel like he can get some reps at that slot spot, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see Drake run some slot a little bit this year too.
I mean, he did power slot.
Yeah, man. Don't be surprised. I feel like that's coming as well when you're talking about the evolution of this offense. So I don't know if you ask me, yeah, man, we're down here in the red zone and about to run this little, we're gonna run 11 personnel, and I'm thinking about putting Drake in the slot. Nah, we can't do that because Ray in that. No. That will never happen. Trust me. So I think that, there are going to be some opportunities for Cordell Hodge. I don't think he's not going to unseat Ray from the third slot, but I feel like that spot is not solidified for him to be on the field every time you run that 11 personnel out there. So yeah, it could be 5. Like I said, it could be Kyle. And if they like them, if they have a matchup that they like, and I think it can be Ray as well. So, and then Hodge can get thrown in there at some point as well. So I think that's going to be interchangeable. I think you got wide receiver 1, Drake, wide receiver 2, Darnell, and then that wide receiver 3. That's going to depend on matchups, game to game, game plans or whatever. So all of those things kind of come into play when you talk about that slot position. But yeah, man, Cordell Hodge is locked in when it comes to special teams. So yeah, anytime you get that guaranteed roster spot because of that, hey man, it's on you as to what you're able to do once those 11 people out on the field.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I just asked just because I've seen it, but like I feel like Ray for what they want to do, because I remember last year when they brought Rondale Moore too, like it was clear they wanted speed at that kind of slottish position for the screens, which people think. I know people hated the screens last year when Kirk did it. Looked a little bit better when Penix did it. Could be just release strength, getting the ball out there quicker, just makes the screen operate where Kirk a little bit flutters out there, so like defense can react. Just because you want to use guys in space, and Ray I guess has speed, so you think that'd be a great thing to use him in space. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Now, our second undrafted free agent question of the show. Gotta mention him. I've seen comments. I have San Jose State fans on the comment section asking about Nick Nash.
Okay, so
I do have to ask you, sir. Do you see Nick Nash potentially making this roster? A Biletnikoff finalist last year. People think there's. And also I want to know your wide receiver comp for him, because I've heard Dez Bryant, I've heard Drake London. They said like maybe a Drake London. What is your thoughts on Nick Nash?
He super productive. I mean, that's the first thing to come to mind when I think about a guy like that. Big body guy, like you said, but he went to a small school for a reason, right? Like, so what are some of those reasons? Not necessarily the biggest burner in the world.
Yep.
So, one thing that I know, coming from a small school, if you're not running a 4.4 or 4.3, they don't really care, But it's hard to ignore those numbers. That's why the Falcons brought him in. Like, hey, this guy is available. Let's bring him in. Let's see what he's talking about. So I think that his pathway is going to be cloudy. It's going to be cloudy with a chance of rain of making this roster. So, and I think that you got to come out there in special teams. If you're going to have any chance at all of making his team when they make those final cuts in August, he has to be a special teams man child, because that's how you show your value as an undrafted free agent, special team. Unless you're in a situation like Cobee, where they didn't take a corner at all in the entire draft, and you got Mike Hughes there at cornerback 2, opposite AJ Terrell, and things happen, during the season. So there may be an opportunity for him to kind of squeeze in there, as long as he proves that he's the guy they thought he was going to be. So, but for Nick Nash, it's going to be a little while before his phone rings to say, hey, man, come on up. We need you. Because you got Ray, you got Cardell Hodge, like you said. And like you said, depending on what the game plan is, you can have Kyle in there. You line Bijan up at the slot and have Tyler Algier back at running back. It's just so many opportunities when it comes to that wide receiver spot that guys are already set on the roster. Like he has to jump through a lot of loops, and I think that his only chance is through special teams. But just from a player standpoint, super productive. You got the size, big body guy, and I think that there's always opportunity. I never say that a guy has no chance of making the roster. Because I'll never forget watching Victor Cruz in preseason. It was like, oh my gosh, this dude has to make the team. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, and he went on to have a great career with the Giants, but that doesn't happen all the time. Yeah. So I understand people's excitement about Nick Nash, but let's get him out there and pass first before we start, hyping the guys up, because that's one thing about my city and the fans of the Falcons team. They'll get on somebody's bandwagon and just ride that mug on out. I'm just like, hey man, let's wait till the pass get on before we start getting too excited.
Do you have a player comp for him? Is there anybody he reminds you of?
Ooh, gosh, man. To be honest with you, it'll be hard for me to kind of look at that right now, because I'm not gonna sit there and act like I watched a whole bunch of San Jose State games. But just from the size and build, yeah, I can look at Drake and say, oh, okay, that's interesting. That's Dez Bryant. I kind of like that one a little bit too, but yeah, it's, for me, it has to be once they get the pads on, once he's going up against NFL competition. Those are some of the things that you have to see in order for my eyes to say, oh, this dude got a real chance. And I think that hasn't happened yet. So yeah, I can't wait to get my eyes on it and see the first time he gets a chance to go up against AJ Terrell. I want to see though you putting guys in those type of situations, that how they fare in those matchups. That's going to be one. And another one, Ruka against Chris Lindstrom. I can't wait. I want to see that. Those are the type of things that I'm looking forward to once camp comes in.
Yeah, man. I cannot wait for the one-on-ones. If this man makes one catch on AJ Terrell, are we sure AJ Terrell is the number one corner?
Right.
Are we sure? Yeah, he's getting cooked by undrafted free agent. I don't know. I know somebody got to lose the rep, but I don't want my number one corner to lose that. I'm just saying. But I get that for sure. I think, when people sometimes ask, I sometimes tell people like, all right, if you want to watch something, obviously you probably want to watch against the best competition San Jose played, which was USC. I believe it was his junior year they played the USC when they were like a top 10 team. He had like a 3-touchdown game that game. And then there was a game last year. I can't remember the team right now, but it was like a Power 5 team. He actually had a pretty good game against. For the most part, where I remember going through his stats, outside of one game against a good team, he pretty much was productive in some capacity. So I think that's where I think, because like I said, he's a body catcher, big body, hands guy, catch radius, kind of a guy. So let me just keep an eye on him on camp. Now, I do want to ask you also about the offensive line. I think everybody views the line as like, oh, yeah, they'll be good. We'll be good to go this year. Obviously, we know Caleb McGarry's the blind side now of Penix is
Mhm.
quarterback, which makes people nervous. But some people say that's why Charlie Warner's here, to help give him support on that side of the ball. But overall, obviously you lost Drew Dahlman. Ryan Nutzel's going to be the starting center now. Matthew Bergeron's going to his third year. Jake Matthews has been there forever.
Yes.
Chris Lundstrom's one of the best guards in the game. Are you still super confident in the offensive line this year? Is there any concern there could be a drop off from anybody? Like, what are you feeling about the offensive line? Because that obviously is a big part of why people think this offense is going to be one of the better offenses in the game.
When you talk about drop off, the first name to come to mind is Drew Dahlman walking out of that door. Because I wasn't a big of a fan of Drew Dahlman coming out. He was smallish. I made comments about, not having enough dump in your diaper, what I'm saying? Essentially, but he got in the system. He got under who I think is an excellent assistant coach, and Dwayne Leffert as offensive line coach. He worked with him. He came in, got in, worked with them, and he was able to finally beat out Matt Hennessy for the starting spot. And then, here's how the biggest judge of offensive line you can be. If you don't hear their name called during a broadcast, probably doing a solid job, right? Because that's one of the harder positions to kind of evaluate, right? When you just think from an evaluator standpoint, because there are no metrics that kind of go with offensive linemen. I know PFF got their grades and all that stuff, but we don't know what the grading scale is. I know, yeah. Oh, your grade out 87. Oh, yeah, that's a B essentially from a student standpoint. But what went into the actual grading process? Like, how do you know what his assignment was in that particular play? And so how are you giving that plus or minus, for this particular play? So that can be subjective as well. So for me, I look at it from a standpoint of, Drew was really strong in the run game. And then there was drop off when Ryan Newsel got into the game from a running standpoint. Pass protection, pretty solid, right? But I feel like that's my biggest question. Okay, is he going to be able to get better in that category in the run game? So we won't really know if there's a difference or not. Like, oh man, Ryan Newsel got beat on X by such and such player, defensive tackle. He got beaten for a sack. I don't want to hear that. You know what I'm saying? When you think about that, because we didn't really hear that from Drew for the most part, right? So that's my biggest question, just from how much of a drop off is it going to be, because like I said, Ryan Newsel is pretty solid in the pass pro. But my second thing that concerns me is what you said. Jake Matthews, he's been there for a long, long, long time. At some point, people fall off, right? Especially NFL football players. So I'm just concerned that, he might get bit by the injury bug. I know that's something to not really think about, because if he's healthy, we know exactly what we're going to get. A solid offensive tackle. He's just been solid his whole career. And people used to talk junk about not Caleb McGarry, but used to talk about Jake Matthews as if he was a bum. I was like, what are y'all looking at? The man, we'll never hear his name mentioned. So that's all you ask for. So, of course, you're going to get beat, when you're in the league. But I just think overall, Jake, at some point, the injuries start to pop up. At some point, the play is going to fall off, because he's been solid, man. I haven't had any complaints about him. So that's my biggest concern with him. As far as Caleb, goes, I mean, can he get another contract? Another team-friendly deal, because here's the thing, man. I know people feel a certain type of way about Caleb McGarry, and I felt a certain type of way about Caleb McGarry. Like, he does have an asset as a skill set. That's run blocking.
Yep.
Hey, if you can say, hey, man, I might not be as good as you want me to be with this, but I'm really doggone good at this. I'm cool with that, because guess what? You're not going to have 5 guys that are really good at all assets. It just doesn't work like that, because there's a thing called the salary cap.
Yep.
That's why the Falcons weren't even thinking about trying to pay Drew Dalton, because they knew what he was going to get on the open market. So, and for those reasons, so you got to be able to say, hey, man, I'm going with the devil I know. I know if a premier pass rusher lines up on this side on third and long, we might need to give him a little help. And we need to kind of mix it up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Because Lord knows TJ Watt, oh my gosh, I'll never forget that game. The man went off. He was making plays from the backside all game. I was like, hey, man, get that man some help. At least put his hand on him when the ball is snapped or something. Do something. But yeah, man, those are my two big things that I say, is Jake going to finally fall off? Is he going to play all 17 again? And Ryan Newsel, what type of drop-off are you going to have with Drew Dalton walking out that door? Or can Dwayne Leffert get that development piece magic and sprinkle it on him a little bit to kind of bring him up to where Drew is? Because he doesn't have to be better than Drew. Because when Drew was in there, the run game was humming. And it still was humming a little bit, when Ryan News got in there. So I feel like those two things are my biggest concerns. But when you think about it, that's not much.
Yeah.
Not much. Is a guy going to get hurt, or is a guy going to fall? It's going to be too big of a drop off in order for this offense to get where it needs to be. So, yeah, I'm not too concerned about the offensive line as much.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, like I said, as long as they protect Penix and keep the running game going, that'll be good to go. Hopefully, he won't have any injuries. I know they got a couple injuries at one point in the year. Because I know Kansas City, I think that's the game Dahlman went down. And then Chris Lindstrom, I think, went down for like a game or two. I could be wrong. Somebody else got hurt.
Yeah.
But, if they can survive that, get through that, I think they'll be good to go. And obviously, if they do that, offense keeps humming along, and Bijan can maybe take the Saquon jump that he wants to take. And
stop doing that, please.
I'm just saying that's what he said. That's what he said. That is on the record. That is on the record. I can't take that away.
He did it. Yes. People cringed a little bit when he said the Christian McCaffrey stuff, but man, look at that 2023 season and look at Christian McCaffrey's numbers and look at Bijan's numbers. They almost mirror each other.
Yeah.
So I do call him Mr. Walk on Water. You know what I'm saying? So hey, man, just saying.
Listen, I can't wait for him to start hitting those wheel routes. That's what we need. The wheel route, Robinson wheel route. Yes. Having somebody out there on linebacker trying to cover him.
Yeah.
Because he dominates passing game. That just open up another element of the offense for this team. So that is
another headache for defensive coordinators.
Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah. So really excited about that, man. I got one more last question for you, and I'll let you go, Jarvis.
Mm-hmm.
So after all the discussion, as I asked you at the beginning, I asked you how you felt. Now I'm asking you, okay, from how you feel, do you believe the Atlanta Falcons will be a postseason team this year? Just right now, how you feel about the team? Do you think they get in there? I guess Raheem saves his job, and Dave saves his job, and Penix probably could be viewed as a franchise quarterback of that.
As long as they don't have any major injuries, I'm making sure I put that out there, because people seem to have forgotten that before Kirk got hurt, the man was having a damn good year. Mm-hmm. He threw for over 500 against the division champ, and he made it look easy too. So yeah, I think people just need to kind of. I know people are really upset about Kirko. May or may not have head injury, because he didn't want to lose his job and all that stuff. I'm not going to get into that conversation, but you have to look at exactly what happened, right? Before he got hurt, the man was balling. He was playing really good football. He was basically had two wide receivers on track for 1,000 yards. Like you mentioned earlier, Darnell Mooney, if he didn't get hurt, he was going to get that 1,000 yards, hands down. So Bijan Robinson had almost 1,500 yards rushing. Like you don't get to that spot without. They were leading division before he got hurt. So look at the facts, man. Look at the facts of the case. The facts of the case were they were headed they were about to get ready to run away with the division. I know the schedule was a little rough towards the end, but like Michael Penix looked good against all those teams that they faced. He lit the Panthers up. Giants, nice win. Was supposed to win against the Commanders. The defense could stop the nosebleed. He didn't get an opportunity in overtime. So, yes, the answer to your question is, barring any major injuries, I feel like, and they're going to have some, as long as they're not major, like quarterback, right guard, and I hope I'm not knocking on wood as I'm talking right now. Like I feel like they have 3. If 3 gets hurt, man, look, hey, they will be in trouble. But barring any major injury, yes, the Falcons should be in the postseason. And we know once you get in the postseason, man, it's all about how you're playing when you at the end of the year. And the Falcons haven't done a good job of playing well down the stretch. So if they can get MPX in there for 17 of them things, and he has a solid year. I'm not saying you got to play like Jaden Daniels, played in his rookie year, but man, due to the small sample size that I've seen, and them having all the support that he wants in that backfield, where he can just turn around and hand it off. Come on now, yeah, it's the possibilities are endless when you think about them having a full bill of health with the players that they have on this offense, and then the young guys being able to just throw a whole bunch of guys on that defense side of the ball at opposing offenses and just say, hey, man, here's what we're bringing. You guys got to deal with it. And I think that's a recipe for them getting to the postseason for sure.
Yeah, man. Listen, they do that. I think now we can break the playoff drought. Because listen, I think people are going to be ready to come out to the Benz support. They've never had a playoff game since the Benz is opened. So I think people are going to be ready to support this team and be crazy. And especially with fans being able to come out to camp this year, I think you'll be able to feel it even from camp this year. I think you'll get a really good turnout. So really excited about what can happen this year. Like I said, just avoiding key injuries, guys taking steps, development, coaching, all of those things play a part when you're mixing it together. And hopefully that comes out with a very winning, successful season for this team. But I appreciate you, Jarvis, for coming on to the show, man. Let people know where they can find you.
They can find me on Locked On Sports Atlanta on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. We have a party twice a week, hour-long, sessions. You know what I'm saying? Like some of them are therapy sessions sometimes, and some of them are, hey, man, we got a little optimism, and sometimes they're a little pessimistic. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, we give you a nice mixture of optimism / pessimism and / a realism. So, yeah, you can check me out on that. And then I'm on Twitter at JarvisD90 if you still go there.
Okay. Yes, sir, man. Yeah, it's good stuff over there. Obviously, he might invite me to a party. So if you see me with a bottle, then obviously, I know why I'm
right. Hey, man, I promise you, I may or may not have had a bottle on the show. So
can't be bad at it. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. Me, I gotta come ruin the function. I gotta bring Everclear, but that's just me.
Whoa. I'm gonna talk for another hour because I was about to say, man, Everclear? Goodness gracious.
You want me to do the light? You want me to light it?
When the last time you got a physical, bro?
I'm crying.
I know you're a young man, but you know what I'm saying? Like, hey,
go do the X-ray. You know your esophagus is gone, right?
Yeah, you better burn a hole in your joint. You know what I'm saying? Like, do it leak into your digestive tract?
Yes, sir. What I always say, man, 2 shots get you right, 3 shots keep you in for the night. Yes, sir.
Yeah, no doubt. That's Everclear.
Hey, man, what a time. But hey, guys, if y'all enjoyed this episode for sure, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, like the video, go listen to the Bear Pod over there, Atlanta Football Party. Always a party when they come on. And, guys, y'all know what we're going to keep doing here. We're going to keep the offseason moving. We're going to keep covering this team, cover anything that comes out. Don't know if anything's going to come out since everybody's taking vacation now. But we're going to be here anyway, so I appreciate you guys. That's Jarvis. I'm Bryce. See you next time.